Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. And today we are diving into some exciting SPFBO 11 news. We at Team FanFiAddict have announced our first round of cuts and our first semifinalist. With 30 books on our plate and only one finalist slot, tough decisions had to be made. I want to say up front that every one of these books found its way into SPFBO for a reason. And just because a book got cut does not mean it's not worth your time. In fact, I'm going to try to point you toward who each of these books would be perfect for. So let's get into it. Now, before we get too much into our cuts and our first semi-finalists, I do want to just give a brief reminder of how the FanFiAddict team is going over all of these. We had our allotment of 30 books between all of us judges. We broke them up so that each book would be read at least twice. And then we would average out those judgments, have discussions, and decide which books were going to make the cut and which ones would come to our semi-finalists. We'll have more updates coming soon, but here's the first set. Our first cut is The Mage's Mentor by Stephen Jarocki. This one follows a character named Cinca on her search to find her mother. What starts as a personal mystery expands into something much bigger, touching on themes of trust, identity, and self-discovery. We had a lot of good things to say about this book. We loved the character work. Cinca is flawed and very real in a very human way, and her arc feels earned rather than forced. There's also this mysterious character that she is forced to team up with. The banter and the camaraderie that builds up between them is just a very interesting dynamic and fun to read on the page. The world building is ambitious, and there is some very satisfying twists along the way. Where it fell short for the team is mostly in the pacing. The opening leans a little too heavily into the exposition, and the ending feels a little abrupt. Like the story could have used just a little bit more breathing room to really explore its world and its themes. But who is this book for? If you are a lover of classic fantasy with strong character dynamics, and you enjoy watching a flawed protagonist grow into their role and into who they're going to become, give this one a look. Our next cut is Butcher Boy by Aaron Daggett, an urban fantasy featuring writer who works for this worldwide organization known as the Votkier. Think of a secret agency that covers up magical incidents to keep the public in the dark. It's a pretty cool premise, and the team really appreciated the world that was built here. The support characters, the magical item crafting, and the investigation framework. The prose itself and the writing are very solid. The book also opens strong, dropping you right in the middle of this action-packed investigation. Why the cut? Well, after a very strong opening, the pacing does slow down significantly. There's a central mystery involving a missing boy who's potentially dangerous, but the story takes a long time to actually address that problem, detouring through side quest after side quest. While interesting, it doesn't always push the main plot forward. We also felt that the first-person narration leaned a little too heavily into the telling rather than the showing. But who is this book for? If you're a fan of urban fantasy, especially if you enjoy like the Dresden Files magic meets investigation, and you don't mind a slower burn, this could be a very fun read for you. The world and the supporting cast have a lot of potential here. The third cut is Riati Rebirth by Kay Zeal. This is a new adult contemporary fantasy set in the modern-day US with multiple teenage narrators. The team was very impressed with how authentically the teen characters read, which if you've ever tried to write a teenage character, you know how difficult that is. The writing is clean, the voice work in first person is very strong, and there's great LGBTQ representation throughout the whole story. The challenge was in the multiple narrators, sometimes blurred together, and the story could be a little light on context. Characters would do things without a lot of grounding for the reader, and it became difficult to see why they were doing the things that they were doing, which I know this makes sense for how teens operate in the real world, but it made it a little difficult for us as readers to get onto the character side. But who is this story for? If you are looking for a new adult read with honest, authentic teen voices and great LGBTQ representation, this is the one to pick up for you. Fans of contemporary fantasy who enjoy strong character voices over heavy plot will find this to be exactly what you're looking for. Cut number 4 is Shadow of the Sword by C.J.R. Isley. It's a fast-paced classic fantasy adventure built around enemies forced into an uneasy alliance. There's a lot working in this book's favor. The character dynamics are strong, especially between the protagonist, Laster, and the morally complex prince named Ezrin, who the team agreed was a standout character. The prose is clean, the action delivers, and there are some genuinely compelling political tensions running throughout this story. The main stumbling block for us as a team is that this was a prequel to a larger series, and it doesn't fully stand on its own. Laster, as a character, can be frustratingly stubborn, refusing to trust Ezrin long past the point where it seemed to make sense. And without the context of the main series, some of the world-building assumptions don't quite land. But if you are already a fan of C.J.R. Isley's main series, this is probably a must-read. And if you enjoy traditional fantasy with strong character conflict and political intrigue, it's still a solid start. Just know that it works best as part of a bigger picture. Our last cut today is The Golden Princess by Brian Braden. This one follows a sheltered royal thrown into danger after a violent coup, and the story moves fast. Lots of tension, lots of momentum. We liked the multi-POV structure, particularly Ezra, whose storyline is more layered and active. There's a real sense of a living city shaped by the political intrigue and the competing factions. And the themes of friendship came through as a real strength. On the flip side, the main protagonist herself lacks a bit of agency. Things tend to happen to her, as opposed to rather because of her. The ending is also a cliffhanger with not a lot of resolution, which is always a tough sell in a competitive setting like this. A larger page count could have given the characters and the story itself a little more room to breathe. But who is this for? If you enjoy fast-moving, intrigue-heavy fantasy with an ensemble cast and you don't mind a cliffhanger ending, this could be perfect for you. All right, now the moment you've been waiting for. Team FanFiAddict's first semifinalist is Shadow of the Sundered Lands by Corbin Rook. And honestly, listening to what the rest of the team had to say, it's easy to see why. This is described as a strong debut epic fantasy with stellar world building and a cast of likable characters and no shortage of action. Rook shines brightest in the quieter moments, when characters are just talking to each other, when the humor sneaks in naturally, when friendships feel real and earned. The last act moves at a breakneck pace, the kind that makes it so you genuinely can't put the book down. The world is unique and dangerous, but also one that you want to explore, which is a tough balance to have. The consensus is clear. Corbin Rook is a writer to watch. I'm excited to get into this one myself as we move towards the next round of judgment. Congratulations to Corbin Rook. And that's going to be a wrap for the first cuts and first semifinalists for Team FanFiAddict's round of SPFBO 11. Again, every one of these books has something to offer. So please don't treat a cut as a reason to gloss over these stories. Treat them as a chance to discover something that might be exactly what you're looking for. I'll be back with more SPFBO coverage as the results keep rolling in. But until next time, let's be author adjacent together.